Susan Rink. I'm principal of Rink Strategic Communications, and my practice specializes in employee communications in for-profit companies, and I've been doing employee communications for about 18 years now. You know, one of the things that we struggle with as internal communicators is finding ways to build trust in leadership of your company. Of course, the same applies whether if you work in an association or even a government organization. And what we're seeing in today's news is more and more organizations are laying off people. There's more and more instances that are publicized of executive malfeasance. It's the era of the $6,000 shower curtain and the $1 million bonus in a company that's received a corporate bailout. Employees have become less and less trustful that the people leading their company are good people, are honest people, have the needs and the best interests of the company and of their own employees at heart. So as internal communicators, it really is our job to help the leaders find ways to build that trust in from their workforce. And whether you're talking about the CEO of an organization or even a team leader, the same rules really apply. So I have 5 basic tips that internal communicators can use to help groom their leaders to build that trust so employees do believe when the leadership talks that they're talking honestly and openly and exhibiting a certain integrity in their communications. Our first tip is visibility. A leader needs to build a certain level of credibility within the workforce on a daily basis. It's an ongoing job. And by being visible and being present in the workplace, a leader becomes a real human being to their workforce. So one of the things that I learned back when I worked for Marriott is a phrase, and I know it's not specific to Marriott, it's been adopted in a couple companies, called management by walking around. MBWA, as we called it. And that meant that as a manager, part of your job on a daily basis was to walk through the work area, walk through the cubicles, walk through, in my case, the kitchen, check in on people, seeing what they were doing, talking to them, and forming some sort of a basis of communication with people on an ongoing basis. It's tough for leaders, and as communicators, we need to find ways in that leader's schedule to get them out on the floor, so to speak, whether it's a shop floor or it's the floors of a corporate office. Many of these executives are scheduled from moment to moment, so it's tough to get 15 to 20 minutes to just wander through the corridors and get a cup of coffee. This is where it's more important now than ever for a leader to get out and wander around among their work staff and talk to them, hear their concerns, and hear about the issues that they're dealing with on a daily basis. Or even something as simple as, oh, you work in the such and such area, what do you do? So that they can get a better understanding of their organization and the people who work within it. Our second tip is authenticity. Not all leaders are great, charismatic performers. Many of them, frankly, are kind of boring. But we don't want to force them to be something they're not, because employees are going to pick up immediately if that leader is trying to be someone that they're not or play a role. And they're going to distrust that executive is being honest with them if they're not being honest in their dealings with employees. One of the greatest examples of authenticity and a leader understanding their own shortcomings and working within those shortcomings occurred many, many years ago. I knew of a fairly new executive that came into a division. He had only been with the group for a month or so, and they pulled together their 600 employees for an all-hands meeting. Now, the buzz on this leader was that he was kind of a lightweight and a big name dropper. And apparently somebody clued him in on that early on, because he got up to the stage and introduced himself and welcomed people and started out as most people would do in any kind of a meeting with, the standard opening story or joke. His story began, well, I was up in the CEO's office yesterday, and at that point you could almost hear the mental groans. His next line was, doing some light dusting. The crowd erupted. They laughed hysterically. And it immediately turned this guy from somebody who everybody thought was a name dropper in an empty suit into somebody who kind of got the fact that people knew that and was comfortable enough to make a joke about it. Now, let me be straight here. It's not like the rest of his presentation was the Def Comedy Jam. I mean, he had some very specific things that he got out and was able to communicate. But through that use of humor and understanding of himself and his shortcomings, he was able to build that level of relationship and build a connection with his workforce from the very beginning. So when times got tough later on and he had to deliver tough news, they trusted that he was being straight with them. Another tip to keep in mind when building trust in leadership is to remind your leader that it's their obligation to communicate frequently and not just in a time of crisis. Employees are building a certain level of familiarity through ongoing communications. Your monthly letter, your weekly blog if you have one, appearances at meetings. It makes the leader approachable. And there's not a trepidation when all of a sudden they get an email in their inbox from the CEO with a special announcement. It isn't always bad news. Plus, there's a level of trust and acceptance in the leader if there's someone who's been viewed out there a great deal. That's why you get, celebrity endorsements. Everybody wants to see Angelina Jolie endorsing something because they know her from the movie screen. They've seen her over and over again. She's a real person to them. Likewise, your leader needs to be a real person to your employees. And by having them the type of leader that's always sequestered and never comes out except when the company is in trouble, there's a certain amount of distress that employees are already going to have in a bad situation. It's exacerbated when the leader is not there except to deliver bad news. I think probably the most important element of building trust in leadership is counseling your leader to address the hard questions head on. You can't allow yourself, your communications department, or your leader to descend into corporate doublespeak, to try and make the message seem gentler and kinder. Restructuring, right-sizing, it just means layoffs. Let your employees know, treat them as if they're adults, but cut through the corporate doublespeak and speak to them in plain language to let them know why layoffs are happening, to let them know why certain things are going on in the company that may look detrimental in the short term, but perhaps in the long term are going to be beneficial. But you've got to be direct, you've got to be plain spoken, and you can't hide behind these mysterious phrases like leveraging your synergies, because employees don't buy it. And you do yourself a disservice if you use them. The final tip is holding your leader accountable for following up. So many times I've been in employee sessions where an employee will ask a question and the leader justifiably doesn't know the answer, and that's okay. So he or she says, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to get back to you. Well, let's be realistic. The CEO is going to go back to his or her office and they're going to start talking about budget meetings, or they're going to be talking about product launches, and they're going to completely forget about the fact that this one employee had that question. And if that employee never gets the answer, then they're not going to trust it the next time their leader says, you know what, I'll take care of that. You know what, I'll keep you informed. So really it's your job as the communicator or the handler or whatever phrase you want to call, name you want to call yourself, to be the person to do the follow-up and to make sure that hold the executive accountable for following up with that employee. In the long run, it's going to yield you an incredible amount of good faith from an employee base when someone in the workforce says, well, I got an email from the CEO and he answered that question that I had in that town hall meeting. It really makes a big difference. Well, as you can tell, I'm a bit of an internal communications geek, so I welcome anyone contacting me. The best way to do it is via my email at rinkcoms, RINKCOMMS, @verizon.net. Or you can check my website, www.rinkcoms.com.